Have you ever tried to be far from the demanding crowd, as Thomas Hardy suggested in his book? Well, if you have, Pitcairn Island is probably one of the best places in the world to do so. It lies halfway between New Zealand and Peru, 5,000 kilometers away from it. So, as you can see, hardly could you ever be farther from the demanding crowd than in this island. The first ones to live there were Polynesians coming from Mangariba Island, only 300 miles away. It remained unknown for the European people until it was discovered by Fernando de Queiroz, a Portuguese seaman working for the Spanish crown in 1606. There they found some relics and ancient burials belonging to the Polynesian who are supposed to have remained there from the year 800 up to the 1500. This island was rediscovered in 1767 by the Swallow, a ship belonging to His Majesty's Navy, and the first one to sight the island was a 15-year-old sailor named Pitcairn, who named the island not after himself, but after his father, who was a well-known officer in the Navy itself. Now, have you ever heard about the Bounty? Perhaps you have, and probably you have seen one of the several movies that have been filmed about it. Here is the story in a few words. In 1787, the Bounty, a frigate belonging to His Majesty's Navy, was in mission to take plants from the bread tree from Tahiti to the West Indies in order to food the population there. They tried to get to Tahiti across the Horn of Cape, but it was impossible. Fierce winds and stormy weather forced them back, and they tried again, searching a new route. Eventually, they got to Tahiti, and there they had a very warm welcome from the king of the island, who kept in mind the time that Captain Cook had visited the island 15 years before, and how they parted as good friends. Well, the crew of the Bounty remained for 6 months in Tahiti, having a very relaxed life. Many of them started relationships with one or several women in the island, and when the time came for them to move to West Indies, many of the members of the crew were very reluctant to embark the ship. Finally, they were forced by Captain Blake to embark and start the trip. As they were on their way, Captain Blake became more and more strict, and his stiffness was the cause of the mutiny led by one of the officers on board, Christian Fletcher. Fletcher cast adrift Captain Blake and some of the men who kept loyal to him in a small boat. Blake was a skillful sailor, and he was able to steer this ship, this small boat, to Timor. Eventually, he got to Britain, where he accused Fletcher to be the leader of a mutiny, one of the most serious crimes in the Navy. Meanwhile, on board of the Bounty, they were in the search for a safe harbor. They even got back to Tahiti, but after a few months they were forced to get away fast. In their haste, they took a few women, a dozen or so women from the island, and finally they discovered an island in a place where it was not supposed to be. Fletcher discovered that the Swallow, the ship that discovered the island in 1867, had misplaced this island in all the charts in the Navy. And so he thought, well, perhaps if in my chart is misplaced, so it will be in any other chart, and they will not be able to find us. And they got to Pitcairn, and they even put the Bounty on flames, so nobody could discover it from the sea. Only 9 members of the crew and the Tahitian women and men set foot on the island. Fletcher was one of them. And what can I say? Regular seamen were not very different from pirates anyway. So in a few years, suicide and murder put an end to the life of many of them. Only John Adams was alive when the island was again discovered 30 years later. Yes, the Navy was still in search of these men in order to condemn them because of the mutiny. But since they saw that John Adams was the governor of a very well-organized village, they decided that there was no point in accusing him again of a crime that had taken place 30 years before. About these facts, several movies have been filmed. The first one was even a silent movie, and the last one in 1984 was starred by Mel Gibson and Anthony Hopkins. There was still another one in 1934, I think, with Charles Lawton and Clark Gable. But my favorite one is the one starred by Marlon Brando in the role of Fletcher and Trevor Howard in the role of Captain Bligh. I think it's a must. You have to see this movie. Well, at least it's one of my favorite ones in all times. Well, in 1838, the population in the island cast a vote to decide whether they would belong or not to the British Empire. And this was the first time in history in all the world where women had exactly the same right to vote as men had. So Pitcairn was the first place in the world where full democracy was applied. It's also, for some people at least, the smallest country in the world. It's not really a country because it belongs to the British Crown. In fact, it's the last one of the colonies, of the British colonies in the Pacific Ocean. Nowadays, the other inhabitants of the island are descendants from Fletcher and the crew in the Bounty. It's still hard to get there. It takes 1.5 day sail from Mangariba, and it holds no airport, so this is the only way to get there. But if you are looking for adventure or for a place where you can really be far from the demanding crowd, I think this is the place. Thank you.